the questions that many of you sent to Ask George, there's two questions that really have come up more often than anything else. One, why didn't the Congress send the bill back to the President over and over and over again? The reason that didn't happen was because in the Senate, where we have a one-vote Democratic margin, the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, made it very clear that he was going to invoke, and he had the votes on the Republican side, to demand that if you were going to do that, you had to get 60 votes. We only have 51 Democrats. We could never get to 60. So you couldn't get the vote to the President's desk. You couldn't get the bill to the President's desk, so he would have to veto it over and over and over again. The Republicans in the Senate were prepared to protect the President from that image, and they would not do that. So it was out of our hands at that point. What we will continue to do is to send additional bills over the coming months that the President may have to sign and the Republicans will have to let go, mainly the defense authorization bill with these amendments in it, with the riders to stop the war, to redeploy the troops, to close Guantanamo Bay, to have no permanent bases in Iraq. Those kinds of things will be in the defense authorization, the defense appropriations bill. It will be much more difficult for the Republicans to obstruct those bills on the way to the President's desk. The second question a lot of people have asked is, why don't you just cut off the money, and that way the war will end? Once again, understand, these troops that are in Iraq, they didn't ask to go to Iraq the first time, and they certainly didn't ask to go to Iraq 4 times after that, as they've been redeployed there multiple times. To just cut off the money is to leave those troops vulnerable and put their lives in danger, and the security of their colleagues in danger. We know that if we are going to redeploy the troops, we have to redeploy the troops in a manner which provides for the maximum protection of our troops as they leave the theater. It is one of the most dangerous times in warfare when you do this in a hostile environment. I voted to cut off the funding. I thought it was an important vote to say that many of us were prepared to do that. But there were not sufficient votes in the House, and some Democrats did not vote to cut off the funding. But the fact of it, again, that bill would never get through the Senate because of the filibuster, so that bill to cut off the funding would never become law. Some people said, well, just don't ever do anything again and the funding will eventually run out over the next couple of years. You can't do that to our troops. You can't leave them in a position where their ability to protect themselves just starts to continue to decline. And there's no indication that the President would bring them home, and so at that point, the troops are paying an extraordinary price for this impasse in the country. What would be better is if we can continue to apply the pressure by sending additional legislation on important bills like military authorization and military appropriations bill to the House, to the Senate, to the President, and the public supports us in that effort. And I think what then we'll see is a continuation of the cracking of the Republican support for the President, as we recently saw with Republican Senator Dick Lugar and Republican Senator George Voinovich, Republican Senator Gordon Smith, who are now, and many other Republicans who are saying privately and somewhat publicly, they're deeply concerned whether they can continue to support this policy. They see the public pressure. They see your frustration, your disappointment, and your anger at the continuation of this war. I think we can channel that now to breaking the Republican support for this war and getting these troops home, and getting them home rather quickly. But we need your help. Just sending the bill back won't do that, because we can't accomplish that because we don't have enough Democratic votes.